let's talk about why I get so excited about quotes. Several years ago, I started collecting quotes. I collect them wherever I can collect them, whether it's movies, whether it's television, whether it is an ebook, an audiobook, a YouTube video, apps, wherever I can, because I have several apps, eight apps that if I'm doing my morning routine properly, I am getting quotes from those apps every morning. And sometimes I find a lot of good quotes. I say 2, 3 at best. Sometimes I don't find any. Sometimes I just find one quote that I can use. And when I find the good ones, I just automatically put them in my Evernote. And I'm here to tell you, and this is not a commercial for Evernote, but anything that you think you want to get organized, Evernote can help you get that organized. And podcasts, same thing. I started listening to podcasts about 3-4 years ago, and there are a lot of podcasts that I like to listen to. My Stitcher lineup probably has about 25 podcasts in it right now. But I don't listen to all of those every week, but several of those I do, like James Altucher. I love to listen to his podcast. Tim Ferriss, Rick Edelman. I like to listen to his podcast a lot. And there are several others that I always catch, and some that I catch here and there. And technology, I just love technology. I always have. I think in terms of technology that this is a very great time to be alive and to have access to all of the great things we have access to. And as I mentioned in my introductory episode to this podcast, that technology can be a great equalizer, whether you're a woman, minority, whatever the case may be, and are disadvantaged in some type way. Technology can be a great equalizer in today's world and media production. I used to do wedding videography and event photography, and I just love putting things together. Just this act here of doing a podcast. That's just something that I just love to do. Making media, producing media is just something that I really get excited about. And also the reason why I started doing all of these things several years ago is I started what I call a self-improvement project. And collecting quotes was a part of that. Just trying to get better every day and every way. And reading is a part of that. Because when I graduated back in 1985, yes, I'm ancient, in 1985 with a BS degree from Lamar University in industrial technology. Now, when I graduated, I did not want anything to do with books after that. Not one single thing. And that was so ignorant of me. If I could go back and whisper into the ear of that 23-year-old Greg, I would whisper in his ear, leaders are readers. And that's so very important. And I guarantee you that if you go to a social event and you're talking to someone that you find interesting, I can almost assure you that that person is a reader. And that quote comes from, that is the paraphrase of a quote from Harry S. Truman, the 33rd president of the United States. And the full quote is, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. People who read, they're just interesting. And as Warren Buffett says, the billionaire with a net worth of $76.2 billion, according to Forbes magazine, he is known for saying, the more you learn, the more you earn. Now, I think we would want to listen to someone with a net worth of $76 billion when he says, the more you learn, the more you earn. And so I've been on that quest to learn more, to be better, to get better every day and every way. 9:00 every morning, a message comes up on my phone and it says, get better every day in every way. Now, of course, just like anything, progress is usually never, ever a straight line. You're going to take a few steps forward, you're going to take a few steps back, and take a few more forward. And it's like that. It's just never a straight line. Now, those quotes will help lead us into the actual quote that is the quote of the week for this podcast. And that quote is kind of a quote that I kind of like made up on my own. It's kind of like, there's several other quotes out there that are similar, but I've never actually seen this exact quote. And I posted this to my Instagram back in January. And the quote is, "You must see it to be it." Now, I don't care what endeavor you have in life, what it is you aspire to be, whatever you want to accomplish, I guarantee you that you must first see it to be it. You have to see yourself doing that thing. If you can't see yourself doing it, I can almost assure you that you won't do it. You got to see that thing first. It's similar to a quote attributed to Henry Ford. Henry Ford was the founder of Ford Motor Company. And he was responsible for making the automobile affordable to John Q. public, to the average American. Before then, automobiles were just the toys of the rich. But what he did was he was able to use an assembly line to mass produce the automobile and to make it more affordable, or to make it affordable for the average American. Now, this person, Henry Ford, you would say is a trailblazer. And a quote that he is known for is, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And it speaks to the quote that I'm using for today: "You must see it to be it." And this reminds me of my mom when I think about this quote, "You must see it to be it." My mom was one of the most, well, I'm not going to say one of the most, but she was the most creative person that I was associated with, that I knew. I'm not saying that she's the most creative person in the world, but she's the most creative person that I know. And my mom used to always say, "If I can get it in my mind's eye, I'll be okay." Or to put it in terminology that's more modern, she would say, "I need to visualize it." And this woman was so creative. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. Two examples. We lived in the exact middle house on the block that we lived on growing up. And on the corner of that block, a man lived there, a single man, and he lived there alone. And eventually he moved out of that house. And that house was also what my mom would say was an eyesore. It was dilapidated. I mean, the grass was knee high. The house was just falling apart. It was a junk house. But my mom, she didn't see what that house was, but she saw what that house could be. And so her and my dad, they bought that house on that corner for pennies on the dollar because it was so dilapidated. And my mom proceeded to turn that house, with the help of my dad and a few carpenters and a few plumbers and a lot of help from my brother and a little bit of help from me. She proceeded to turn that house into the show house on that block. And I'm not saying that because it was our house. I'm just saying that because that was a fact. She saw that rundown house, not for what it was, but for what it could be. Give you another example with my mom. One day, she found some bed backs. And those of you who know me and have been in that house, you can attest to this. She turned two bed backs, or two headboards that she found in a junk pile, and she turned that into an eating booth in our kitchen. You know, like you go to the restaurant and they say, "Do you want a table or a booth?" And you say, "I want a booth." She created that from those two bed backs from a junk pile. She could just see beyond what a certain thing was. She could see it. You must see it to be it. And you have to get your mind game right in life before you can accomplish in it. You have to see that thing to be that thing. And that's what I want you to think about this week. Just think about that. You gotta see it to be it. Visualize it. Imagine it. I guarantee you NBA players who shoot free throws very well, they see the ball going into the basket before it goes into the basket. Whatever it is out there today that you're thinking you want to do, you want to be, you got to see yourself in that position. A podcaster that I listen to a lot, his name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and he helps a lot of people get podcasts started. And one thing that he likes to say is that one thing that he mentions is that some of the people that he helps, once they start podcasting, sometimes they suffer from what he calls the imposter syndrome. In other words, they start thinking to themselves, wow, I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be doing a podcast. Who am I to do a podcast? But to be successful at it, you have to first be able to see yourself doing it. I was able to see myself doing a podcast. And anything that you want to do in life, you have to see it to be it. And thank you so much today for joining me in my podcast. And I would love it if you would come back again and again. And I would love it if you would go and subscribe to wherever you're listening to this at, on iTunes or Stitcher. And also, I want you to always remember this. Quotes don't work unless you do. A lot of people get podcasts started. And one thing that he likes to say is that one thing that he mentions is that some of the people that he helps, once they start podcasting, sometimes they suffer from what he calls the imposter syndrome. In other words, they start thinking to themselves, wow, I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be doing a podcast. Who am I to do a podcast? But to be successful at it, you have to first be able to see yourself doing it. I was able to see myself doing a podcast. And anything that you want to do in life, you have to see it to be it. And thank you so much today for joining me in my podcast. And I would love it if you would come back again and again. And I would love it if you would go and subscribe to wherever you're listening to this at, on iTunes or Stitcher. And also, I want you to always remember this. Quotes don't work unless you do.